Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and deceased. My name is Emily Sophia, and I'm going to be walking you guys through the latest of Telltale's The Walking Dead, episode 4, I believe it is, of season 2, Amid the Ruins. So spoiler alert, before I dive into the mad thick of things, grab your scuba gear, we are getting into it. And I know it's a little bit strange that this is I think that technically this is the first time that I've reviewed The Walking Dead, the game. I have reviewed a couple seasons of the television show, so you can check out the link in the description to the playlist of those videos, but I do want to keep up with reviewing each episode of this game. I had hoped that I would have time to throughout my school year, but guess what? I didn't. I had to graduate, and I did. So I'm gonna try and make more time for gaming review vlogs and quite possibly some gameplay, as some of you have requested. But anyways, let's talk about this episode. I'm going to do my best to kind of capture my reactions to and analyses of the events and the character development. If there's anything major, any glaring omission in what I'm discussing, please fill it in the comments. This is a collaborative shindig. We are going to make a delicious stew of conversation, and it's going to taste more sorrowful than savory, I think, but that's just kind of the nature of this game, and it's addicting and horrific, and what more could you really want from life, okay? So this was a really tough and dense episode. Like, it's all, and I mean, this entire game, it's all about the choiceless choice. It's this illusion of the ability to make decisions that completely alter your course. And I'm not saying that your decisions are meaningless, but ultimately it just seems like one way or another, there's this vacuum of fate that's just sucking everybody into it one by one. And really all you can do is kind of prevent people from getting sucked into that vacuum like later rather than sooner. For instance, the fact, and yes, this is gonna get really spoilery in case you blocked off me saying that there were gonna be spoilers earlier. Yeah, we're getting right into it, but the fact that, at least in my playthrough, like both Jane and Sarah left the picture at the end seems to indicate to me that whoever you chose to try and save at the fort as you're trying to break the deck down and get the walkers away, like one way or the other, they're both gonna be out of the picture. So much for woman power. Like, all the women die in this episode, and I don't know how I feel about it. Clementine needs some of that feminine energy. Then again, she also needs the ghost of her Jedi Master Lee. I've been waiting for him to emerge in her psyche at some point, and he's still gone, and I don't like it. I am perpetually in denial. Like, at every given turn, I'm just like, Lee's gonna show up. Mental Lee, Ghost Lee, he's coming. He's coming back, I believe. Raising the dead, right here, right now, but haven't gotten that little treat yet. And that might just reopen wounds for me anyway, but I'm living in sweet, sweet denial, and some others might. Maybe you've healed and have been scarred and embittered by this post-apocalyptic universe, but I have hope. Anyways, so yeah, like I ended up choosing Jane because I found her to be a really fascinating character, and I was like, okay, how far can we take this relationship? She's the epitome of a survivalist. She is made of everything that keeps a person physically alive in the apocalypse, but as to what remains in her heart and soul, what things are intact, I think she's still got that sensitive side. And it almost seems as if she wants to take Clementine under her wing because she sees these traits in Clementine that make her a powerful survivalist. And then she just up and leaves. And I guess I should have seen it coming. I guess I should have. She's just kind of making her way through the universe. She's as distrustful of trying to take root in a place as anybody else who's actually survived so far is. So I get it, but I don't. I'm really bummed out about Sarah. I've always been really on the fence about her character because it was hard to tell exactly what the writers wanted to do with her, because at times I tried to extend my sympathy towards her. She seemed, we knew earlier on that she was very sheltered, and I didn't know if perhaps there might have been some kind of mental illness or social disorder, something of that nature that kind of further made it difficult for her to grasp what was going on around her. And so at times she really, it really tested the player, because you're kind of, there were points where it's like, is it even worth it to try to do the moral thing anymore, to try to hold her up and keep her going when she is resisting and folding in on herself and folding in on herself and denying, And so we are put to the test as players and really submerged into the gaming universe, into this, the psychology of the characters that we're playing, as we're like, okay, dude, get your act together or get you gone, And and when my siblings and I, in our playthrough, when we found Sarah, we slapped sense into her and we got her as far as we could, and then we pretty much ruined her because we tried to make her accept the truth rather than saying like, yeah, we'll all go back to the cabin and be happy, and like we were just kind of zigging and zagging, like, let's try a little bit of every possible approach to the situation of her unwellness. And I don't know, I just felt really horrible about the whole thing, like just kind of throwing her to the wolves at the last minute. And it's like, maybe Luke might have been able to pull Jane up, and then you're kind of wondering, but the fact that in my playthrough, and I think in many people's playthroughs, both of them are gone by the end, means that they were gonna be gone anyway. And so you're just like, all of a sudden your soul is just filled with this nihilistic, like, nothing matters anymore, Maybe I'm being dramatic, but that's just kind of how I feel. So, and then there's the situation of Kenny. I don't know what's going on with that firecracker. I feel like he's the carrot that the writers are dangling over our faces. Like, he is the remnant of Clementine's old group, of which Lee was part, and so we want to continue to nourish that relationship. And then, well, in our playthrough, we had Clementine hack off Sarita's hand and all that, the fallout of that situation. So now Pirate Kenny is just having none of anybody's business, and basically the way that we approached any conversations between Kenny and Clementine was for her to kind of choose silence. And usually I prefer to have the characters say something, but I don't often enough try the silent route, because you want to feel like you can have a positive influence or a negative influence, and kind of the world of the in-between is scary because, again, it's just that kind of loss of control. But with Kenny being as volatile as he is, when we met with him in the tent and he's all like, I almost died and it was so peaceful, we just let him talk. We kind of played therapist for a second, and we're like, all right, he's just gonna get it out there. Anything that I say is going to become the candle to his wick, That was not innuendo, by the way. Please and thank you. And then he actually kind of came back around as he heard that Rebecca was going into labor. His paternal instincts kick on like crazy. That's what I like about Kenny, is that he really is a well-defined character, because he is prone to this deep despair and anger and rage, and then on the other end of the spectrum he bounces back to this fierce loyalty, and he is so stubborn and obstinate, but you need those sort of figures at the same time. It keeps the drama interesting. And it also keeps that passion alive in a world that could just totally suck all of those powerful emotions out of you. When you're living in constant anxiety and fear, you know, you kind of wonder, like, at some point, wouldn't everybody just kind of flatline in this place of apathy? But not Kenny. Kenny's he's still rocking and rolling, man. And it was really interesting to see how he interacted with Rebecca's child and the whole kind of territorial issues that got all stirred up when he's got the baby and he's trying to make the decisions that are going to be good for the child. And so it gives you hope, but then it freaks you out because he's constantly butting heads with Luke. And so there's kind of this triangle where Clementine has to either be the arbiter between the two or pick a side. And we chose the role of arbiter because Kenny can be scary. I love the dude, but it can be hard to trust him because he is just so this hand motion of mine is him. Whereas Luke, like, he has a pretty good head on his shoulders, but you know, again, it's kind of the whole precedence thing. Kenny was around before, but, you know, so we're basically having Clementine be in this position of whenever they're fighting, it's like, you both are idiots, you know, instead of going on one side or the other, just bonk their heads together, they're seeing stars for a second, and then hopefully they'll see some sense in the situation. So, it was really interesting to have Jane in this group at the time because she's kind of this big voice of reason for Clementine, and it's the first time in a long time that she's really had a mentor figure. And she's not a motherly figure. She's not quite a friend, you know, but she plays such an interesting role. And at one point, I love when she called Clementine partner, and then we had Clementine respond with, partner? Just what are you saying, girl? And she goes, you know, don't let it get to your head. I think you're awesome. And then there's the whole kind of symbolism of the nail file. I think that Jane ultimately showing Clementine different techniques with the walkers and then giving her this survival tool before she leaves is kind of like, hey, I know that you are more loyal than I could be, that you make these choices that I cannot. And so here, you survive, you do what you need to do, you be with these people if you need to be with these people, but this is your ticket. I believe in you. And it was so hard because we actually had Clementine say to her in an attempt to guilt trip her out of her her leaving. We were like, you know, I thought you believed in me. And it's just like, everyone believes in Clementine. Don't be an asshat. And the way that Jane handled the whole thing was pretty emotional, and yet I was also just really frustrated by the end because it's like everybody dies, you know? We lose Rebecca, and also the situation with Arvo. How did that go down for you guys? We did not know what to do in that situation because, you know, you have to get super pragmatic, but then also consider the whole he's got groupies possibility. The very viable possibility. So I was really freaked out when we stuck with that fortress as the place to have Rebecca's baby, because it's like, dude, he knows where this place is. This is where, and we actually had them take the bag because, I don't know, it was just such a 50-50 split. And what was fascinating at the very end of the episode was seeing that for a lot of the other players, everything was like 50-50. Like 50% of players decided to do this and 50% decided to do that, or like 49% decided to do this and 51% decided to do that. So it seems like this was a really, really tough episode. There were a lot of times where we had to pause the game, like as the little timer is ticking down and you've got your choices, and we're just like, no, more time, more time, more time. It was very, very tense. And so, yeah, how did it, for those of you who decided not to take the bag, how did that actually end up going down for you guys? And that last Mexican standoff scene that we had at the very end was super scary, with Rebecca turning in the middle of that, and everybody's on edge, teeth ready to sink into everybody else's next, you know? And so in the end, like, knee-jerk reaction, we had Clementine shoot Rebecca because there's the baby. You don't want to, like, it's either the gunshot or you're yelling and you don't know what's maybe either way. The group is going to be set off, and so you have to end with the camera cutting to black and then pow, 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 pow. I feel like if everybody was just going to die in that instance, they would leave us with that before the next episode, but I don't know. It would just be really mean to, I mean, it's really mean either way if we have to like live with this ending for weeks or months or whatever. But then it's like if we have to pick, it's the whole not knowing. You just want to know so you can grieve and then prepare yourself for the next episode. I don't even know. Who else did I have an increasing affection for Mike as a character. His humor was quite fun. And with the whole like raccoon shooting scene, and when Clementine gets to go with him and Bonnie and the jump scare, and what I loved about this episode was that it was very dynamic. There was a lot of movement. You've got confrontations with other humans and groups of walkers. You have to innovate, tough choices. There were episodes earlier on in the season that were really short, and I was afraid that this season was going to go by in a flash. But this episode, it took us a couple of hours, I think. Yeah, it was super, super tricky. And what was also interesting was the setting and their whole being in the South and dealing with all this, you know, the Confederate flags and regalia and stuff like that from the Civil War. And then, and sort of the commentary on like the implications of racism. But then, like for Rebecca, Mike is like, he's on edge about it all. And Rebecca's like, who gives a damn? You know, none of this matters anymore. And it kind of makes you wonder, you know, about the social implications of that kind of apocalyptic event. Does it break down those prejudices at all, you know? And so sort of the way that the characters interact with all this symbolism and its historical implications, it could sort of suggest, you know, that this event, does it erase history? What happens to history and culture and, you know, those societal rules as time goes on, you know, when it comes to surviving, like, you gotta use what you've got, and you wanna be intentional, but you also wanna try and just keep on going, because just maybe you'll get to the other side of it someday. So that's what's interesting about the setting in this game and in this episode in particular with the fort and I think I was saying the fort was where they went, but I think it was a museum. I'm getting kind of confused. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, but I'm just I'm frustrated. Death and I don't know. There's also a lot of speculation about the fate of Clementine and whether the next season, which has been confirmed, is going to be centered around her character. I still feel that she is the center of the universe, at least from our perspective. And at this point, I don't know who the focus would shift to if they were to pick somebody else for the next season. I think that going from Clementine's perspective really is fascinating, and we have the strongest tie to her. I mean, Kenny's still been around. I don't know if they would bring him back just to kill him in an even more glorious fashion than we thought he'd been killed in, but I don't know. I'm going insane. And then, for those of you who watch the TV show, it's coming back this October, and I think I'll go ahead and do a vlog kind of breaking down the latest trailer for that season, which looks to be deliciously action-packed and gut-wrenching and all things of that nature, so I'll talk about that too. Other thoughts and reactions and stuff about this episode, or even the season as a whole, I don't care. I haven't done reviews for the other episodes, so I'd love to talk about those too. Yeah. yeah, so where do you think it's going to go from here, and where do you think they're going to pick up? Like, are we going to pick up with the dust settling and see who we've still got? Or is it going to be like a later down the road, here's where we are, captured again? Or, I don't know. I don't know. They can do what they want with us. It's going to be the finale, too. So, oi, yoy, yoy. I don't know what to think. But, yeah, very, very intense. I'm going to leave y'all with that. Give me your comments, and we will talk. It'll be fun. We'll shoulder each other's burdens, and yeah, I'd definitely be curious to hear about the other ways that this can go down. All the hatred and despair and agony. It's what keeps us coming back time and time again. All right, you guys, take care. Don't fret. Don't worry. Be happy or sad if that's what you're into. We'll all be there together. So y'all take care, and I will be back before you know it.